Well, was a freshman in 1960 and retired in 1980. And I was a member of the Assembly and later became Speaker pro tem of the Assembly.
Can you talk a little bit about why regionalism has always been a special interest of yours?
Well, I was appointed chairman of the local government committee by Jess Unruh in 1963, as I recall, and I really had no contacts with the local government. I'd never run for city council or participated much in campaigns. So I, shall we say, brought a fresh outlook to the situation. And it became apparent to me that there could be more cooperation among local governments in the public interest without interfering with their basic sovereignties. And I started very early on that. The reason I was involved in local government is that I got in a fight with Jess Unruh, who was the speaker, and he was just coming in as speaker and appointing all the new chairmen. And I was supposed to get finance and insurance, which is a big committee handling a lot of money issues and so on. And Jess was so upset with me, he put me on local government, which was regarded as a nothing committee at the time. But I got very interested in it, and we moved on with significant changes in the law.
That took a lot of vision back then when I think that the trend and the culture was to be so provincial. What were some of the big issues of the day where you thought it would be better for the local governments to act in a more regional approach?
Well, we had all the regional issues from Bayfill, which was a very prominent situation there, water quality related to that, traffic control, building highways. Just about every issue you can think of is no one entity can solve it all by himself because the problems leak over into your neighbor.
So what kind of reception and response did you get when you were trying to promote these regional issues?
Well, to start with, it was from local government. There was a lot of anger and because all politicians, including me, are concerned about losing some of their influence, and that stung particularly hard in some of the city council situations. But I worked hard. I was making speeches all weekends and getting around and trying to convince my friends in local government to cooperate in this for the general good.
Now, ABAG was founded in 1961, so just about the time that you started getting in local government. What kind of overlap or shared goals did your committee have with ABAG at the time?
Well, just about everything that they did and we did were interrelated. I can't think of anything that we weren't interested in and involved in and that they were doing. People in local government or any other government are very jealous of their prerogatives. And that isn't a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, they're interested in what they're supposed to be interested in is the betterment of their particular slice of the pie. And once in a while they conflict or there's duplication or the problem could be solved in a different way. So I certainly didn't describe any evil motives. Nobody was stealing. It's just everybody wanted to figure out the best way to go ahead.
During that time also, 1971, MTC formed. Do you recall the genesis of MTC much at all?
A little bit. It was formed by a bill of my good friend John Ferran, who was in the state senate at the time. And he's kind of the father of that. It was a well thought out proposal, and we tried to work with him, and I think we did successfully.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced at the time, along with ABAG during its early growth?
Well, the biggest thing you have to face when you're proposing major change is fear. As Roosevelt said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's true. I mean, people in local government have their prerogatives. They're proud of what they have, and they don't want to lose it, and they're suspicious sometimes of people that try to move in. And I had a great deal of that to deal with.
How did you help quell that?
Well, you keep talking, and you make suggestions, and you go around on weekends. I'd make maybe 10 speeches on a weekend around the Bay Area, and just trying to inform people of what we were trying to do and take away the fear operation, and try to show them that we really were doing this in their interest.
Did people in the Bay Area at that time regard the Bay itself as sort of the precious resource that we now like to think of it as?
I think that the word came around, and they showed these maps of the Bay with all the projected fills, and it really scared people. And that was what helped us put this thing together, because people had always taken the Bay for granted. Never occurred to them that someone would try to fill it up. But you know, when you could fill an acre of waterfront land on the Bay, you've created a very valuable asset. And so the temptation in some quarters could more than they could handle, and we really needed a sovereign kind of power of government to regulate that, and that's what we ended up with.
Tell me about the formation of BCDC. I understand you were pretty key with that.
Well, it was started, and the first real notice of it was from a very fine fellow, a good friend of mine, and a great legislator named Nicholas Petros from Oakland. And he proposed some kind of regulation over filling the Bay. And people laughed at him. Started out, they thought that was bizarre, but actually it was long overdue. And but Nick really is entitled to a great deal of credit for that, because he put that thing together and really, you know, got newspapers interested and so on. Save the Bay became a good rallying call. I think it was the 70s, early 70s when it started out. And that was a long, you know, a lot of people thought that's ridiculous. What are you? But really, there was a major threat, and the newspapers started publishing maps in the paper showing what were planned fills around the Bay. And if all those fills had been filled, we would have had a darn little bay left. I mean, it really the time had come to either do it or not.
You've seen a lot of growth in the Bay Area and a lot of change. When you look back, especially to 1960 when you first started out being a public official, what sort of things regionalistically are you most proud of?
Oh, I think the local agency formation commissions were was the major bill that I carried, although I was active in all aspects of local government.
And what kind of projects or tangible things have they done that you think, boy, you know, I'm kind of proud I was a part of that?
Well, it's been a long time, but the regionalism that we talked about really promoted the communication among the local agencies. And I think that a lot of the law enforcement cooperating in city and county has resulted in more protections for our citizens. I think land use, while one city isn't going to interfere in the land use process of another city, on the other hand, they establish some kinds of principles that were generally adopted by local government and county government as well. But really, I think our principal function was to assist by changing the law on occasion, local government in doing what they wanted to do when they were capable of doing themselves.
Did you think we would get to this point in time?
Well, I was very optimistic. I was always an optimistic politician. And regionalism was new. And regionalism as a word frightened a lot of local government officials very much. They said, you're going to take over my city or my county, or you're going to interfere with my jurisdiction or what power I have, and I don't like it. And it was our job to convince them that we weren't trying to do that at all. We were trying to make them more effective. And I think we succeeded finally in convincing the leaders in local government to go along with this. Well, it's heartening to hear somebody like that, because a lot of the local government officials that I was working with when we started this were extremely suspicious. And we had to convince them that this would actually add to their influence and their ability to do things. And I think that's where we finally succeeded, and a lot of other people working with us, of course. Well, the secret to it is identifying problems that have to be solved. And these are problems that are not strictly local situations, but regional problems that go beyond the borders of a given county or city. And once people realize that they really all have to work together to get the best result, that's what we're after. We're certainly not trying to take away any of the jurisdiction or sovereignty that a city or county have, because I think that's part of local government. It should have its own identification. But on the other hand, there are problems that really require a lot of cooperation to solve. And that's what we were trying to do. Well, there were problems of road building, traffic, problems of well, all of the local government problems you can think of: zoning, handling of industrial waste, tax base issues. I mean, every issue of local government you can imagine was shared among all the local governments, and to some extent they cooperated in solving them.
Did you foresee the congestion problems that we have today, back in the
Well,
60s?
I don't know. I was certainly not a traffic expert, but it didn't take a genius to figure out that we were getting a lot more cars on the road, and trucks, and so on, and that we probably wouldn't be able to handle it very well without some changes.
What ideas do you have for the two agencies, ABAG and MTC, to work together in the future that would best benefit the region?
Well, I'm not an expert on what they've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years, so it's hard for me to answer that question. I have found, when I was in the legislature, that we have a lot of people of goodwill in the Bay Area. And if you can show the way to people to have a better life and a better situation by some adjustment in government, I found that people were willing to look at that. Everybody assumed that that there would be such hometown approach that we couldn't get anything done, but that just was not true. Well, I would like to say generally that in any part of the United States, you're going to find people who are concerned about their particular problems and maintaining their boundaries and their interests. And I think in the Bay Area we are blessed with a great sophistication of people, both in local government and outside of government, to try to do the best thing. I think there's the fact that we're around this marvelous bay really gives us the core of the need for regionalism. If we don't cooperate, and one community tries to fill the bay, for example, and this hurts everybody else, and so everybody rationally realizes that we have to regulate that. And there are a lot of other areas as well.
Any final words to commemorate the joint anniversaries of the 50th anniversary of ABAG and the 40th anniversary of MTC?
Well, I think that they show that public really wants what they do. And I'm very proud of the Bay Area. I think we've had marvelous leadership and made great progress. And I think, it gives everybody a feeling of security that nothing terrible is going to happen. And I just have always been appreciative of the local leadership. I think it's excellent. I met a lot of, when I was working on these bills, I'd make 10 speeches on a weekend, getting around all over the Bay Area as I could, and it's huge. I mean, the idea that one guy running around talking about something is going to solve these problems is just naive. It really takes a lot of thoughtful people and a lot of people willing to spend the time to discuss these matters and to come to some conclusion.